Hello, readers. Welcome to episode 2 to Reading in the Middle. Today, we are joined by Tony Weaver Jr., an award-winning writer, educator, and mental health activist. His debut graphic novel, memoir, Weirdo, releases on September 17th and is already generating much buzz. With star reviews from Kirkus and Publishers Weekly, Weirdo is a heartfelt story about embracing what makes you unique, even when the world says otherwise. Join us as we explore Tony's journey, his creative process, and the powerful message behind Weirdo. Enjoy! All right, yay! So we are at our second episode of Reading in the Middle. My name is Anisha Jeffries. And I am so happy to have our wonderful guest, Mr. Tony Weaver Jr. He has a new graphic novel that will be on the shelves coming straight to you on September 17th, and it's called Weirdo. And I've had the pleasure of reading it. I've read it like a million times, and I'm telling you, it's just really wonderful. I mean, you laugh, you cry, you cheer. There's so many emotions in this graphic novel, Tony, and I just want to ask you a few questions regarding that because I don't want to give a lot away. I wore my cape because I feel my superpower is being weird, right? What made you want to share your story in this graphic novel format?
Well, I'll give a little context first, because I love that you've had the opportunity to read it. I'm excited to bump into more people that have. We're almost there. September 17th, right around the corner.
Right.
For my good friends that are hearing my voice for the first time, my name is Tony Weaver Jr. I'm the author of a book called Weirdo, the Nerdy Kid's Instruction Manual for Self-Love and Self-Confidence. So it is a graphic novel memoir chronicling my personal experiences, overcoming depression and anxiety, and learning how to love who I am. It's a really triumphant, positive, victorious story that my mentor, Jason Reynolds, says is a blinding light of a tale about a boy that fights to become himself. When I was writing Weirdo, when I thought about the story, it was never a question for me whether it would be a graphic novel or not. It needed to be because there is such a lack of representation when it comes to Black characters in children's literature. And I also think that in narratives about mental health, when we talk about mental health, very often Black kids are left out. Mental health works a little differently for us. I had a conversation with someone where I said, one of the top tips that they give kids, take 10 deep breaths when you find yourself getting angry. I said, well, 10 deep breaths looks different for a Black girl in a world where she's suspended at 3 times the rate of her white peers for the same things, in a world where in a state like Texas, I can be denied entry to school because I'm wearing natural locks. I might not even be mad. You might just be interpreting me as mad. You might be bringing your own kind of preconceived notions of how I'm supposed to present. And the way that you're perceiving me might be the thing that is creating the discomfort more than anything that I am actually doing. So for a story like this, we're talking about mental health. We're talking about perception. We're talking about identifying positive self-image. It was really important for me to see that through the lens of a Black kid. And so a graphic novel was, to me, the most visual way to do that.
I totally agree. And you're correct. Young people, to talk to them about their mental health, and it's important to be able to do that, and your book encapsulates that. It really does. I mean, there are so many parts in Weirdo where, like I mentioned, I was crying because it hit home on certain aspects of taking me back to middle school, having friends, and we weren't like popular. But, and so you reaching out with your story about your struggles and what you went through, you're going to have so many young people reach out to you and let you know that, you're speaking to them. And so it has so many themes of identity and self-acceptance and empathy within the book. And I like the fact that each time you introduce a character, you mention that they have a superpower, right? Some people have question marks underneath. Yeah, they don't have one yet, but I like that. It's just, I like that part. And can you talk about that a little bit? About those superpowers, like your mom and your dad. And
that's one of the really fun things about a graphic novel, right? The way that you present information, sometimes just the visuals of how that information is presented denotes things about the character and their role in the story. So every character in Weirdo, they're a major character. When they introduce, we kind of get this title card with their name and their ability, inspired by some of the hero screens in My Hero Academia, but also some of the cutscenes in Persona 5. If you look at any JRPG where you kind of have a roster of characters that all have abilities, even on Mario Kart, like you scroll over a specific card and it'll give you some stats. In one way, it's a quick form of exposition, but in another way, they're really subtle things that I'm communicating to you. In chapter 1, we meet my mom, and she's rushing me because we're late for school. We don't want to be late, and her ability is that she's never late. She's always right on time. And later in the book, we encounter a really dark moment where my mom is really there for me, and that power kind of reiterates itself. She's always there, right on time. I relish at the opportunity to use subtle things like that in storytelling. And without getting too much into spoilers, one big thing in Weirdo that kind of is really important for it to be a graphic novel is that we do a lot of stuff with colors. There's a lot with color. It happens in the book. And every chapter has a color. And for the most part, every character also has something that they have a color that's affiliated with them. And at the beginning of the book, we find that my color is red. And there's another character that we encounter much later that is coded to be a villain, that's coded to be a character that we're not supposed to like. And his color is also red. And I won't spoil anything, but it is certainly supposed to raise an eyebrow that the kid that we're supposed to love, because he's the main character, and the kid that we're supposed to hate because he's the main villain, both have the same color. I wonder why that is. There are a lot of very subtle visual things that you can go back and kind of point at and go, oh, I see.
That's exactly what I did. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because the illustrations, are really great and they stand out so much. Can you share some insights with Jess and Sen Winbowo?
Yeah, so Jess and Sin are Indonesian twins, and they are very detail-oriented, and that's something that I appreciate about their work. And the way that we were kind of able to collaborate from the beginning, I kind of had a clear vision of, this is a real story about real people, and we're shifting some things, but a lot of this stuff we don't actually have to make up. So we can go, I can go and get pictures of my school. Like I went back home, I was like, all right, let me go get some pictures. Like I'm taking pictures of the house. I'm taking pictures of the route that we're driving. I'm taking pictures of the school, of the building. I'm going back in old footage on my flip phone and finding things, school website, and looking around being like, no, I don't need to see this room. I need to see this room. But I think that they brought a lot of positive talent to the book. The thing that I think really helped punch up the book's narrative ability, it's just their skill as draftsmen, just how they lay out a page. I can't take credit for any of that stuff. I know what page the dialogue is supposed to go on. I know what's supposed to happen in each panel, but there's something magical when they look at that page and they go, well, we could orient the panels in this way, or we could set things up in this way. There's a scene in chapter 2, or in chapter 1, where I'm having a conversation with my dad, and there's this moment kind of emotionally where I'm really trying to connect with my dad, but my dad has sunglasses on, so I can't see his eyes. I can't look him in his eyes because he has these glasses on. They're kind of blocking. And in some ways, it feels like he's leering at me, looking down at me, because I I don't know what's behind the lenses. And the twins, we went back and forth on it like maybe 5 or 6 times. And they came back with this layout that kind of leveraged the reflection of the lenses with the rear view mirror of the car that we were sitting in, for me to be able to make eye contact, air quotes, with my dad while sitting in the back seat of the car. And it's tiny things like that that I think made collaborating with them a joy.
I like the fact that, you mentioned that but although you're not the illustrator, you have such a big part because it's your life. And so you're describing to the illustrators facets of part of what was happening at school, at home. And so to have that collaboration where they weren't there, right? But they have the photos and they have your writing to be able to flesh that out. How do you hope, with that in mind, how do you hope your book will impact young readers in general? And, what do you want them to take away from that?
Well, I think everything that I do is rooted in this belief that stories are powerful and rooted in a desire to make young people feel seen and valued. If I'm putting pen to paper for something, what I want is for a young person to feel seen. I want them to open a page and read a chapter, read a scene, and feel like somebody knows a secret that they've never told anybody. Like they read it in there and they think to themselves, this is a feeling that I have. This is an emotion that I've experienced. I haven't told anybody about this. I haven't known how to tell anybody about this, but it's right here on the page. You caught me. You caught me. For me, the stories that best have impacted my life and that I constantly think about are the ones for which it feels like they get me. And that's how I want kids to feel. I want kids to feel like they're understood, like they're related to. And because in the book, or really the goal is to help kids come out on the other side of their mental health journey happy and whole, it's my hope that that connection and that relatability that they feel to some of the events of the book will allow them to resonate with the positive themes even more. If you can see this character struggling and relate to that struggle, then maybe that character's triumph will resonate with you, even though you haven't gotten to yours yet.
Yeah, I see I see Weirdo in school libraries. I see a Weirdo in public libraries. And I mention that because educators can take take this book and have it in their classroom and share it with their students. Parents also can take Weirdo and share this with their children. And although I'm not a young person, like I mentioned before, it does take me back, and it's just such a powerful book where there are happy times and there are dark times, and it is relatable, and the fact that you really share that, not go into full detail, but you do share a little bit about the dark times.
It was really important for me to navigate that in a respectful but also honest way. I'm very open about the fact that I'm a suicide survivor, and we have conversations about mental health. Parents are they are admittedly a bit concerned, and I think it's justified for a parent to be concerned, like when we're talking about a child's well-being. But very often what happens is these concerns don't lead to actual conversations. These concerns lead to sheltering kids from resources that they may need. And inevitably, you reach a point where you're doing more damage by keeping resources away from them instead of just having a conversation with them about this stuff. So Weirdo is designed to be a book that'll allow you to have those conversations without dipping too deep into the darkness. I think we broach these topics of self-harm, of self-hate in a very accessible and neat way. Nothing is gruesome, nothing is macabre, nothing is needlessly violent, if you will. I mean, ultimately, it's a book for kids. Kids are dealing with difficult feelings, and we want to We want to honor those difficult feelings. But we want to make sure that there is, we want to make sure that there's levity. So even though we do kind of approach that darkness, the book still manages to be a very happy and positive and triumphant story. That's a big thing that I think I want to communicate with people. There are some people for whom they're like, oh, we're talking about mental health, and they immediately go, I'm on my way. I'm here. And other people go, whoa, 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 we're talking about mental health. I don't know if she's old enough for that. I don't know. I don't know if you want to talk about that. So I think winning those people over is a significant thing for me as well.
Yes. You really hit the nail on the head when you mentioned some parents could be cautious and say, "Oh, we're not ready." Maybe the parent isn't ready. How do you know that your child isn't ready? And so that's very important.
Well, the thing behind it, it gets a little. How do I put it? Read Weirdo. Weirdo's good, but I'll shake the table a little bit.
Okay.
The thing that makes the conversation difficult, they're like, I don't know if they're ready. I don't know if they're ready. There are a lot of parents that aren't ready themselves. There are grown adults that have not taken the time to process trauma and think about their mental health. And in many ways, the same kind of avoidant tendencies when it comes to maintaining and protecting their mental health that they picked up, they are inadvertently passing down to their kids. So when mental health conversations happen, they're like, well, what do you mean we're talking about mental health? I don't know if they're old enough for that. It's like, well, because you're a parent and in some ways you haven't had the conversation with yourself. So you get concerned because you haven't done that work yet. But I think Weirdo as a book and the relationship that I kind of have with my peers, but also the relationship that I have with my parents in the book creates this very good kind of melding common ground place for parents to read it with their kids and for them to have those conversations safely and together.
I agree. Also, New Kid by Jerry Craft. There's so many other books out there, but I think one thing that I really enjoyed about Weirdo was the fact that just like a New Kid, he has this bond with friends, a family, but then also to me with the illustrations, it reminds me of, if this wasn't your story, it would be like a comic book. It's like a comic book feeling that you really get. Like you feel like, like I said, I'm not gonna spoil it either, but at the end, that's why I got the cape, because I was like, you know what, I feel empowered, and there's like a message that you give at the end of Weirdo, that for those readers that read it until the very end. So I want to know, like, how do you see graphic novels? How do you see their role in encouraging middle grade readers to explore complex themes like mental health, identity, and self-acceptance?
Well, I think that we're in an interesting place when it comes to the role that graphic novels have in the education ecosystem at large. If you were like maybe 5-10 years ago, you would certainly find people saying that comic books aren't real books and that, like graphic novels aren't really real reading. And we've kind of moved past that. However, there's this kind of other concern of saying, well, graphic novels will get my kids reading, but how am I going to get them to sit down and read some of these more complex ideas, some of this more complex prose? And I think that there's a place in graphic novels for all of that. But ultimately, my kind of hot take on these literacy conversations is that literacy has been a problem in the United States for decades. If we go back to 50 years earlier, literacy rates were still very much in a difficult place. If in 50 years the kids have changed, the schools have changed, the teachers have changed, the literal only common factor between now and 50 years ago is the canon that we're telling them they have to read, that means something. On paper, that means something. Perhaps the books that we have chosen to help kids understand these complex themes and topics are not as engaging as they need to be, and we need to pick something else. A lot of people get really defensive about that, but in my opinion, if something is a universal theme, but you tell me that you can only get that theme from one place. It doesn't sound very universal. If I go outside and I hop in a car that was built in 2022, I don't have to go back to a Ford Model T in order to understand how cars work before I go drive this car. We got to get a little bit more contemporary about our thinking. And I think that it ultimately is a larger conversation about what role the canon should play in education, what role K through 12 should play in introducing kids to the canon, and also what role colleges and universities play in introducing kids to the canon. Because the other part of that conversation is where you say, listen, my job is to get the kids reading and teaching them how to read. And unfortunately, if Shakespeare is not going to get them to read, then maybe we should be reading something else. And the question that we get back is, well, how are they going to survive in a college level course if they don't understand basic Shakespeare references? And I'm like, I don't know. But I tell you what I do know. I know that school budgets and literacy budgets have been getting cut unilaterally across the board, and that in the entire education space, colleges and universities are the only people that are making money right now. They've increased their tuition like 14x in the last 10 years. You got money, you'll figure it out. You charge them $50,000 a year for tuition. Figure it out. If there's anyone in this pipeline that is going to need to adjust the way that they're teaching and has the resources to do it, it's higher ed. So if the pro is we take literacy rates from less than from 2/3 of kids not being able to read on grade level to 3/4 of kids being able to read on grade level. But the con is they can't explain the plot of The Tempest or Macbeth to you. I'm going to pick that reality over the one that we're in right now either way. But getting back on topic.
No. This is great. This is wonderful. I totally agree.
Graphic novels in the way that we look at them right now, like I write middle grade graphic novels, so and because the way that literacy rates are, a lot of those middle grade graphic novels are also going to be read by high school students as well. I think graphic novels are an amazing tool for reading, and as you can see on this shelf behind me, I have over 1,000 volumes of manga. These books have taught me more complex themes than any prose that I picked up. I challenge people to really think about what they mean when they say complex, and what the barometer is for what makes something complex text and what isn't. Because we know that graphic novels use more rare vocabulary than prose, and also the connections to visual literacy require a completely different form of multimodal thinking than reading prose. So we got to get really clear on what we want kids to have and how we want them to grow. And if we have that clarity, I feel like graphic novels are always going to be involved in the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It's true. Now, I may be incorrect about this, but I know September, and I don't know if they've switched it around with the American Library Association. Well, anyway, September used to be a banned book month, right?
Was it?
Yes, but I think last year, it was in October, because I remember creating a display in our department for it. I can't recall if it is, but
it's in September this week. Banned Book Week is September 22nd through the 28th, apparently.
Thank you. Okay, because last year it was in October, and I was like, October? Okay. But the thing is, and I mentioned this, and you don't have to speak on this, but, New Kid had been banned, in school libraries.
Yep.
And I'm like, it was baffling to me, the fact that it was.
Yeah.
But this is the situation we're in. And I'm wondering, have you prepared yourself for something of that nature? I mean, there's nothing you can do, but it is unbelievable that we're actually talking about this right now.
I mean, Jerry Craft is a close mentor of mine. He wrote a blurb for Weirdo, and he really took me under his wing. When Weirdo was just a concept, but before I had even put pen to paper on my outline, he was very supportive of me. And when New Kid got banned, I remember texting Jerry and being like, "Yo, you're like a rock star. Like this is the rock star. This is the equivalent of like a rock star treatment. Like you get to be the bad boy." this sounds like kind of cool. And Jerry was very measured with me. He was like, I promise you, it is not something that you want to happen. It's never a good feeling. It doesn't feel cool. As what he articulated to me. He's like, I can understand that point of view, but it's never something that you want to happen to a book. And I think at the time, when I was still early in my process, I was thinking about it from like a perception perspective, right? But if you're a writer and you sit down and pour your heart into something that you genuinely want to help kids, that you genuinely want to support them, then you find out that the powers that be and the institutions kind of surrounding them are actively keeping them away from those resources. Even though the book has already had a significant amount of success, that's pain. Because like when I wrote Weirdo, a part of the reason that I wrote it is because I was running myself ragged, traveling around the country, trying to do workshops at schools and libraries and support kids with their mental health. And I realized that a book could travel much more farther than I could. It wouldn't be subject to the same limitations as me. So now I sit in a place where this tool that I've created to support kids that I know need help, there's a chance that a kid will need help and the tool will exist, but someone will arbitrarily decide to keep that away from them and make them weather that storm alone. And that sucks to think about.
It does.
That's it's something really painful to contend with.
Talking about this right now is insane.
Yeah. I think for me, I prepare myself for the eventuality that Weirdo will be banned somewhere. I don't know where that'll be. I don't know when that'll happen. But I know that Weirdo is a book that thrives on truth. And anytime you're telling the truth, somebody is going to get upset. So like mentally, it's something I prepared myself for, but I don't know how it'll feel or how I'll respond to it until it actually happens.
And also, there are other avenues where children can get books, whether that's an ebook or an app. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about them getting books on other platforms? Does it matter?
I'm much less concerned about a kind of new avenues for access being established and more concerned about the kind of targeted and deliberate use of the public school system as a weapon to mandate ideas in an industry that's already pretty skittish to begin with. It's like, listen, publishing, I love them, but at the end of the day, it's very much money driven. To ban an idea or ban a book, you don't necessarily have to keep it away from everybody. All you got to do is make it just difficult enough for a person to get it. And if you lock it out of the library system or the school system, that gets rid of the academic market. Not only does it get rid of the academic market, it also shuts down parents that might be a little more dubious or a little more doubtful, a little on the conservative side, not in political ideology, but just in the way that they don't like to go towards boundaries in that way. If you can plant that seed of doubt, you shut off academic sales avenues. You really limit organic reach. And for that type of story, publishers and backrooms, or they'll never say it out loud, will go, well, should we spend money on this? The next time a story like that shows up, they'll go, well, last time we spent money on this, the book got banned. It's really difficult for us to make our money back. It was super contentious. It was, honestly, worth it caused more difficulty than it was worth. I don't know if we publish one of these again. And if that publisher makes that decision and they're not acquiring it, maybe across the big three and some of the other major publishing houses, they decide they're not going to acquire it. Authors like that don't get to show up in the marketplace. Retailers don't have sales data for how authors like that do, and sales-wise, and suddenly we start to see less and less, fewer and fewer, because the data says, oh, well, these books don't sell. When in actuality, what's happening is that somebody somewhere is tipping the scale in a different direction because they don't want that idea being disseminated. That's what concerns me.
word of mouth is always important, right? We have social media, and we have educators and librarians. And so when we were talking about the educational situation, how do you think a book like Weirdo, how can it be used in the settings, in educational settings, to promote discussions around diversity, mental health, and empathy?
Well, I think Weirdo has all those pieces required to be a tool in every teacher's arsenal. I mean, in the book, we're covering everything from communicating across lines of difference, self-love and self-esteem, knowing when to ask for help, how to make friends, breaking stigma around therapy, addressing your own perceptions of people and how it may cause you to treat them negatively, how to speak truth to power. There's so much. Every chapter, a kind of new thing pops in. I'm not supposed to do this, but I look at the Goodreads sometimes. I'm only looking until launch. If you put a Goodreads up review before launch, I will probably see it. Once the book comes out, I ain't looking. That's y'all space. That's reader. Once the book comes out, the readers own the Goodreads section for Weirdo. But since I'm not really able to speak to people that have read the book yet, the Goodreads reviews are kind of my only way of knowing. So I looked at one of the reviews and they said it covers a surprisingly broad set of topics. And I'm like, yeah, we growing over here. We learning over here. We starting conversations over here.
Yes.
That's what it's designed to do.
I can see book clubs, educators starting book clubs with their students, librarians doing the same thing. You're right. It covers all of those topics. And September 17th can't get here any sooner, but I want to make sure that, like, from one part of the book that you mentioned, you said heroes are people that make the world around them better. And you mentioned that your grandmother was that hero.
Yeah.
And I love that. I totally agree with you on that. That's just beautiful because, every hero has a story and a journey to tell. And that's you. You're a hero.
I'll say this. You can hold me to this. Knock on wood, I'm going to be writing for quite a while.
Yes.
But you can hold me to this. Weirdo is the only story in which we got to cry about grandma. One rule of every Tony Weaver Jr. story: grandma will be there every time.
Good. I mean, grandmas are amazing. I mean, they're the glue, right?
Yeah.
And so I totally. That's what got me. It's so powerful about that, and I love the fact that embracing your weirdness, because some young people think that they're not cool, or they're not popular, and it doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. It doesn't mean that. But I say all this to say, but everyone has their uniquenesses and differences, and they all should be celebrated. And that's what I'm trying to say, that's what I love about Weirdo, is because you have those crushes in school, you have those friends who got your back, you have those friends that in school that try to help you navigate this stuff that's going on. And then you have times that somebody doesn't like you, and they want to beat you up, and you have that. And not everybody can be liked. So I mean, that's all the points that I love that you've added and included in Weirdo. And hopefully it won't be the end. Hopefully we'll see something Weirdo Part 2, maybe.
I'm writing. So I mean, I can confirm that there will be a Weirdo 2. So Weirdo
Right.
Intensely autobiographical,
Yeah.
100% bar for bar. This is my life. I think Weirdo 2 will kind of get to explore in the world a little bit more. Tony in the world of Weirdo will become more of a character than a one-to-one version of me. There's a lot of stuff that I'm writing that I can't wait for you all to see, but it starts with Weirdo.
Nice. Excellent. I'm excited. Tony, I want to thank you again for taking this time to chat with us, to talk about Weirdo, to have this discussion. It just was awesome and very great. So anything else you would like to add on these?
Well, I'm grateful for your time, grateful for the chance to talk to you. And for anybody out there that's listening, please go pre-order Weirdo, or if you find this after September 17th, please give it a read. I feel like it's a very powerful story, and I can't wait to hear what people think.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everyone, thank you for listening. Don't forget that Weirdo comes out on September 17th, so mark your calendars. You won't want to miss it. Also, be sure to check out our blog at readinginthemiddle.blog for more updates and behind-the-scenes content. Thank you for tuning in to this episode, and be sure to check out Tony's work if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more conversations with your favorite authors. Until next time, keep reading and keep embracing your inner weirdo.